loves a tax dodge, right? I mean, I know I do. And let's face it, if the light and most of the ruling party can get away with offshoring their buckets of cash in the Seychelles, why shouldn't we get away with a few quid here and there? And that has always been the way. In post-war Britain, especially in the 50s and 60s, there was a cracking little loophole that meant you could go down to your local car dealer, a Ford, Austin, Vauxhall, and go and buy the commercial version of a car-derived van, so a panelled-in estate car effectively with no back seats, and get away with paying less for the car itself and no tax on it, or no VAT at any rate. So you'd drive off, you know, a good few pounds and shillings less than you'd otherwise have spent on it. And then because everyone was wise to this, and you pop down to your local motor factors, buy some glass side panels and some rear seats, and off you go. You've converted it into a nice estate car, looks just as good as if you'd bought it from the dealership in the first place, and saved plenty of money. Brilliant. Everyone got away with it, no one minded, and if you were honest, you'd leave it a year or two until you passed the tax point and then just re-register it as a private car. Everything's fine. This car, however, did it the wrong way round. This is an Austin A35 Countryman. This was an estate car from new. Someone went to the Austin dealership and bought an Austin A35 Countryman with seats and windows and paid the tax and everything. However, at some point, for reasons lost to the mists of time, someone then chose to take the glass out, put metal panels in and remove the rear seats and turn it into a van. I don't know why. But what you do need to remember though, next time you watch Wallace and Grommit and they're driving around in their cute little Austin van, there's a good chance Wallace and Grommit are actually on the make. They're tax fiddlers. Here at the front, this is just basically the same Austin A35 you'd find in any other Austin A35. But moving backwards, we've got a few little differences which are quite interesting. You don't really notice them at first either. The fashion was for wooden side panelled cars with timber frames and lots of wooden detail. So you've got the Mini Countryman, the Morris Minor Countryman, lots of things from America, the Ford Country Squire, that kind of stuff. And they've kind of gone for the Countryman on the A35 with this interesting little embossed metal pattern. I don't think I've ever noticed this before on one of these, but it's very, very cute, very oldie English, and obviously, and being just pressed steel, it's a lot cheaper to produce and much easier to maintain in the future because it doesn't get dry rot or woodworm. If you get that clever shot, that's a bit sticky. I find it amazing that in 1958, a year after Sputnik had gone into space, this thing still had trafficators on it, for crying out loud. That's insane, isn't it? Now this is a metal panel. When it left the factory, this was glass and you could see into the pretty little interior, but no, this is a metal panel now because this has become a commercial. Back at the dealership, there are a stack of bits of glass which came from this car from the factory 60 something years ago. So you could convert this back into a car if you wanted to. There's a back seat in this thing now. If you had a business perhaps and you wanted to promote it and do something a bit interesting, you could sign write this and make it quite an interesting little semi-practical delivery van or just a showpiece for your company, if you wanted to. Here in the back of this thing, it's not a bad load space. Even with the reinserted seat back up, there's about as much space as the Alfa 145 boot, which I came to work in today. So I've got room for a couple of camera bags and a tripod, no problem. The floor is crackle metal finish, so that's steel and tough, but I guess it might scratch. And the sides are panelled in a nice kind of cardboardy black stuff like you used to see in cars all the time. Austin sold the A35 on the catchphrase, "We can save you money," and boy did they save everything they could. This car is basic on a whole new level. There are even sliding windows because, I don't know, just winds are too extravagant. This car has been very well restored. It's got a few extra buttons on the dashboard. It's got a fog light and a security catch. Up here we have the switch for the original trafficators, but luckily someone has, when they restored it a few years ago, added modern indicators on the same style of switch, so cars following you today will actually understand what's going on. Even though it is astonishingly basic, I think all you basically have is wipers, lights and a pull switch, really. That's your limit. I think there's a horn in here as well. Yeah, there's a horn. It's actually very nice to drive. It's not rapid. The speedo reaches 80 miles an hour. The claim is this car will make 73, but I wouldn't be that brave myself. The quarter-mile drag time is around 28 seconds if you've got enough time on your hands to go and give that a go. But actually on the road, it's surprisingly smooth. Because it's the same 4-cylinder 948cc A-series and 4-speed manual that went into virtually everything else. It was tried and tested and it was a very good, simple unit. If you wanted basic motoring that was reliable and relatively comfortable, this is a great little setup to plonk into almost anything you care to name. The 4-speed is nice, it's got synchromesh and it's got reverse. in terms of basic motoring, what more do you need? Okay, a radio would be nice. Hey, in terms of creature comforts, you've got electric wipers, you've got 2 sun visors, which not every car had at this point. You've got your quarter lights for fresh air on a hot day. Okay, I'm struggling a little here. Safety-wise, things weren't the best in the 50s. There are no seat belts at all in this car, and no locking mechanism on the seats to get you into the back. But there is a heater, so you pay your money and take your choice. Seat belts or heaters, you decide. Oops. Oh, bother. Oh, that's a problem. One thing I hadn't encountered, I was about to say it's really easy to get in and out because the seats just flip straight back and forward. I hadn't realised, of course, that the seats, even though they're not very big, are kind of wide for this extremely narrow body. And back here, I'm 5'10", 5'11", and this driver's seat is set up for me, and the seat is now touching my knees. I would really need a slightly shorter driver if I was going to go in this. You've got a lovely view to the windscreen when there's no one sitting in the front, but it's a little claustrophobic sitting in the back of a van with no windows. I suppose you get used to it and be okay on a short journey, but I wouldn't fancy it for a long ride. On the plus side, there's tons of headroom in here. I mean, you could be a tall person in here. With no legs, obviously. Yeah. Much to the annoyance of the Ford C-Max that has just blasted up around the corner behind me, the 0 to 60 time on this 34 horsepower A35 is 27 seconds. So try as I might, she's going to be sat behind me for a couple of minutes. Oh no, she's turned off, that's a relief. Because in addition to the 34 horsepower, it's also 50 foot-pound of torque. And in today's terms, those are kind of laughably small amounts of power. But in the 50s, that was, relatively normal. Obviously a manual choke on this thing. But it does have synchro mesh across the gears, so it does make it quite easy to drive. There's no other power assistance going on. There's manual steering, but the thing is very, very light, so you don't really need power assistance with that. But the brakes, though, are typical Austin A35. And as A35s go, they work absolutely perfectly. But if you've just jumped out of a brand new 2018 or 2019 car, you might be in for a shock. Put it this way, I'm not going to get any speeding tickets on this road test. But it's an awful lot of fun though. It's kind of odd driving this thing because it does feel like a car from a very long time ago, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, it also feels modern enough that you could forget that you're driving something, 60, 70 years old and doesn't have any of the safety features we've got used to. For example, there's a house driving at me. How would I deal with that in a car with no seatbelts and airbags? So yeah, after not many minutes of just acclimatizing to the fact you're driving a car with no seatbelts and tiny indicators and almost no brakes, there's no mistaking it's a car that's best part of 70 years old. But at the same time, it feels tight enough that you can forget how old the car is and possibly get yourself into a bit of trouble by just barreling along way too quickly for, a lot of classic BMWs there. That's interesting. There are a few little idiosyncrasies with this car. For example, being a van, you've got almost no rearward visibility, which is a pain. So you have to kind of drive past the thing you're going to reverse into, and then just hope, more or less. sliding windows, these are hilarious. Oh my word, what's going on there? It feels much faster than it is because that little A series is chugging its heart out. It's typical raucous little revvy motor, giving its all, which is not very much, but it does it in such a generous way. You feel great about it. It's a lot of fun to drive. Oh, I've hit 50 miles an hour. Yeah, this is a very little cute, endearing car, I think. That one, that's a different road. Where's my turning? Here we go. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this little run around, this brief look at a weird section of British historical motoring when someone did exactly the opposite for some reason. Please hit like and subscribe. Please save the nasty comments for another channel. Please keep comparing my videos to Hubnut because that makes me laugh.